Arsenal versus Aston Villa is fast approaching. And usually, what we do on these shows is sometimes we have guests, sometimes we don't. But I'm starting to get behind the idea of doing these with guests. One, because it's a lot less lonely for myself. And secondly, because it's great to have insight from the other side of things. So let's crack on and talk about Arsenal against Aston Villa. Hello and welcome to the Gooner Talk, back again with you guys for another show, for another episode of our Raw Reaction preview series, showing which we look ahead to the next Arsenal game. And I'm joined by a fantastic guest this week. I'm joined by Cole Petham. How are you doing, mate? Are you well?
Yeah, good. Yourself?
Yes, and that is a hell of a delay. I was sitting there waiting. We may have got it. We're hoping, viewers, that it turns around and it comes back, because the delay for some reason has been horrific. So bear with us, because hopefully it will fix itself. But Cole is part of the 7500 to Holte podcast, which is effectively an Aston Villa podcast. Feel free to correct me at any point in the delay, Cole, at any time. And we can sort it out. But in terms of like what you're doing on that side of things, just trying to give the listeners a bit of an insight as to what you're doing with those.
Yeah, for sure. So long story short, it's a blog that this predates me. So 7500, from what I believe it stood for, was essentially it was started in the US. So I think that was the amount of miles to Villa Park. So basically, it's a blog website. I've taken over the podcast portion of it, the Holtecast, for the last basically since last January. So coming up to a year now. So yeah, if you're looking for anything Villa related, if somehow an Arsenal fan wants to read that, blog related, podcast related, you can find it there.
Sweet, yeah, and obviously I jumped over there last week and did I say last week, it feels like a week ago now. 2 days is all it was to do a preview for you guys ahead of this game. So I've left a link for that in the description. So if you want to see that side of things, feel free, people, to click the link in the description and go over that and listen to that. But we're going to look at sort of the way in which we do these shows normally with my lineup, and when we have a guest on, we feature the guest lineup as well. So we're going to go straight into that and look at the Aston Villa lineup that you've picked for this game. So talk me through it, because you've made a hell of a few signings this summer, it's fair to say. Ollie Watkins, I mean, he has come, I mean, the hat-trick against Liverpool was fantastic, obviously, but coming in from Brentford, we've seen them get absolutely pillaged at points over the summer, with, say, Benrahma going off to West Ham as well. Do you look at him as now kind of the long-term striking option for yourselves? Because you had, obviously, Wesley, Samatta, and they never really kind of worked, but are you now kind of solid with this is going to be the guy?
I think it basically has to be when you pay £30 million for a striker. I mean, we've seen that not work for a lot of teams. If you look at West Ham and Lair, it's not really working there, and I think they paid more for him. But nonetheless, yeah, kind of everything we've needed in a striker. Unfair criticism at times because of the price tag early on, but nonetheless, the guy has 4 Premier League goals already, so I really can't complain with that. You look at Ross Barkley on loan, basically a non-risk signing. If it works out for us, who knows, maybe we can get him for a half decent price, though Chelsea are good business dealers, so I'm sure there'd be a good fee for that. And kind of looking at that lineup as a whole, Matty Cash as well. Wasn't really expecting that one, but nonetheless, he's probably arguably been one of the best right backs in the Premier League so far this season. Maybe that's a little biased, but I think especially with our little decent start for the first 4 games, and obviously it's tailed off a little bit, he's shown his qualities nonetheless.
Yeah, very quickly, I feel like I should have done this at the start of the show, but a couple of our listeners are jumping in the chat box and asking how we have an American Aston Villa fan. So very briefly, do you want to just kind of enlighten to the fans as to that?
Yeah, for sure. I'll just clarify. I'm Canadian. I used to do.
Sorry, yes, I knew that
it's all
as well.
Good. It's all good.
That's so bad, because and they're saying it in the chat, and I've done this before. And Christopher Fung, who's one of our long-term listeners, is a Canadian, and he comes on to the show all the time. And the amount of times I've accidentally called him American, and it's the worst thing ever. Like it's the worst mistake. Go on, sorry, carry on.
No, it's all good. Funnily enough, I actually play Xbox a lot, like FIFA, with a bunch of UK guys I have for years. Had a new guy join yesterday, and he goes, "Oh, you're American." I said, "No, I'm Canadian." He goes, "Oh, they're all the same." So you know what? Like, whatever. It's all
They're
good.
not, and I've just made the
No,
error as well.
they're really not. But especially political views. But I will not get into that.
Yeah.
Nonetheless,
I bet you're laughing your head off right now.
oh yeah, I've been watching a lot of the coverage. I don't want to get into it, but like,
Yeah,
it's
of
just
course.
it's funny to see. But nonetheless, how did I support Villa? I did get asked this last night too, funnily, by the same guy on Xbox. So I'll explain it again. I don't know if it's a sucker for punishment. Just I don't know. I love the underdog.
I like
It was
pain.
one of the yeah. It was just one of the first teams I saw on TV. The access over here wasn't probably great. Oh God, like 6+ years ago. So I kind of start getting into it around, I want to say maybe around 2011, 2012. That's kind of when I really took it on. And yeah, I don't know. I guess just the likes of Gabby and co got me into it, but I don't know why. I could have went easy. All my friends are Liverpool, Arsenal, Chelsea fans. So I don't know. I thought I had to be different, long story short.
I mean, what a club to be different. You could have chosen. You could have gone with like a German club. I know that Germany is quite big over there in North America, and of course, looking into kind of the way that sort of fans across the Atlantic support football teams. It's interesting that you've gone down that route, and I congrats for that and props to you. But yeah, going sort of back to where we've come full circle now, going back to kind of the lineup that we're looking at there. You talk about the signings that you've made. Dean Smith is doing. I look at it as a weird job last season because the way that you came up, the signings that you did make, and the money that was spent, I didn't think it was going to be that much of a scrap to kind of maintain Premier League status. But he managed it, and then this season he's kind of pushing on from that, isn't he?
Yeah, it's been a weird one. There's, especially with the last two games, it's been a lot of parallels in terms of, well, you look at the start of the season, unbeaten, the best goal differential in the first 4 games, kind of carrying over from the form from last season. Obviously, beating you guys was a massive reason why we stayed up, and I hope I never have to go through another 90 minutes like that or the West Ham game on the final day. But nonetheless, a lot of that momentum kind of carried over. And sometimes you do see that with teams that you look at Sunderland, I don't know how many years in a row, just kind of scaved it off. And they had seasons where they kind of, the first couple games, they did all right and then just tailed down and kind of kept up again and kind of continually did that until they dropped. And you see that with a few other teams as well. So we're kind of subject to that. The issue with the last 2 games, especially for us, it's been one of the first times we've really conceded first, and it's kind of how we reacted to that, and that's shades of last season. Especially, I don't know how many times where as soon as we're a goal down, 2 goals down, the heads are dropped. I don't know if it's the leadership's in question, whatever it is. It's almost like, especially we saw in the Southampton game, so maybe Arsenal fans will feel a little bit better about it from this aspect. It was almost like as soon as they're 4-0 up, it's like, okay, well, we're gonna lose, so let's just play now. So there's that kind of thought process in it too, and it's just kind of one of those situations where we have to kind of take advantage, and if we don't start quick, it doesn't usually go well for us historically.
Yeah, and I mean, looking at kind of we kind of touched on the signings briefly, but one of the main ones and the one that links to us, other than the fact that we have on this channel so many debates around the goalkeeping position, it's a joke. Like, should Arsenal have sold Emi Martinez? Should they have kept him? I kind of went on a bit of a rant yesterday talking about this, saying that at the end of the day, we were offered an amount of money from you guys that was 10 times the amount this guy was worth a year ago. Like, he was a third choice keeper. Only last season did he really become the second choice, because we had so many other keepers that were also there. He'd been going off on numerous loans throughout the seasons, and he's now worth 17 million quid off the back of 12 games for Arsenal. What did you make of the signing, and were you really happy with it when it happened?
I could see it. I could see a goalkeeping signing coming with Heaton's long-term injury. Now he's only just starting to really get into full force training, so we kind of expected that. We've had the goalkeeping issue for I don't know how many years, and then for the last couple we've had too many. Kalinic, we bought in the championship. We thought he was going to be the number 1 for years. He played a few games, and basically that was it. You had Nyland. He left on basically nothing. The club bought him out. And of course we have Jed Steer at the back as well, basically got us up. So it's been kind of a conundrum of do we just kind of wait for Heaton to come back and maybe put Steer in goal or keep Nyland, or what it's going to be? Because we are also linked with, I think, Romero and a few other, I guess you could say, keepers with quote unquote Premier League experience. I always kind of laugh when they say that, because apparently that's a requirement. But nonetheless,
as well.
Yeah, I really don't think it matters as long as they stop the ball. I really could care less. But no, very happy with the signing. If anything, it kind of puts into question what we do when Heaton comes back. My opinion, players are always better when they have good competition. So very happy with the signing. The amount of clean sheets he's had already, just the clarity. This is kind of rich after conceding 7 goals in the last 2 games, but the clarity we've had in the back probably for the majority of the season has been fantastic. And I think he's a large reason because of that.
It was always going to go. It's going to go continue on to the end of the season as to whether Arsenal made the right decision by moving him on. I maintain that we were never going to see the fee that would be needed to sell Leno and keep Martinez. So it made sense for us to move Martinez on for the price that came in. We may never have managed to get the likes of Thomas Partey had we not sold him. So it always came down to Arsenal's finances in the summer, and Martinez's sale was a big part of that. Typically, though, what we will see is an absolute masterclass from him, because whenever Arsenal play against Fabianski or Manone, like whenever we played against our ex-keepers, they had an absolute baller of a time against us. So that is what's going to happen. Anyway, let's have a look at what I've picked for Arsenal's lineup against Villa. And it is the same lineup that we played against Manchester United. It's what you may have noticed, Cole, from if you've seen much of Arsenal this season, is that you can guess a lineup and you can put a lineup in, but it very rarely stays in that kind of formation. It's very fluid. So I don't expect Saka to be playing in that kind of number 10 role. He kind of skews out to the left-hand side quite a lot, does drift inside quite often. And then you've got Willian and Aubameyang playing in these wide areas. And from an outside perspective, focusing on Aubameyang, what do you kind of make of the way that Arsenal use him? Because a lot of Arsenal fans would like to see him playing as a striker, but his XG and the way that he performs out in wide areas is really lethal, and he does quite well out there. So as like a rival fan, are you more scared of him playing in a wide area or specifically through the middle?
Yeah, I'm more scared through the middle. I still don't understand why you guys play him out wide. He's a pure finisher, like the pace on the man. And I've watched a few Arsenal games this season, so I feel like I can kind of comment a little bit. Lacazette, I can understand why he's there because he is a pure striker. You can't really put him anywhere else. But I don't know. It feels like it takes him way too many opportunities to finally get that chance that he scores with. So yeah. I don't know if it's a question of changing up the width and putting Aubameyang there. How well does that link up with Willian as well? And I think Willian's kind of an interesting subject as well, because he has this fantastic season last season, especially Project Restart wise for Chelsea. And then he comes over with quite a bit of hype. Probably you think, okay, the contract's a little long. We'll probably get a prime 1 to 2 years out of him. They'll suck it up with the third because it's a 3-year contract, right?
Yes, it's a 3-year contract. It's an extension, so he gets 2 extra years than he would have done. So yeah.
Yeah. So with that being said, he really hasn't, I guess, reflected that form, the Chelsea form. So it's kind of interesting there. But with Aubameyang, for sure, I think we saw last season too. Actually, interestingly, in our game when you guys came to Villa Park, seemed very switched off. I think a lot of people gave him, especially I saw it on Twitter, a lot of slack that I think when we scored, he was joking around with Tyrone Mings. I don't know if you remember that. There was like a caption of them laughing together or something. So apparently that was a reason why we scored or something. I don't know.
Actually, but yes. Was it a header from a corner?
It nicked off of Mings's head, which would have been Aubameyang's man. So apparently him laughing somehow coincided with that goal. I don't know. But
because all of a sudden they're like laughing, and then all of a sudden Mings just switches off and then just goes to glance the header. But I mean, you can't really turn around and be like, Aubameyang in terms of defending corners, why we're putting him on Mings anyway is a problem. Like, what?
Yeah, well, that's like us last match. We had 5 foot, I think he's 5'7", 5'8", John McGinn on Vestergaard, who's like 6'6". That's like me racing Usain Bolt. It's not going to work. Like, yeah.
On the previous show I did on your side of things, we talked a little bit about how Aston Villa the last couple of games have started to concede after having such a blistering start to the campaign. Arsenal are notoriously this season defensively astute, but kind of struggling creating plenty of chances at the moment, which is weird talking about Arsenal in that way, because we used to be a team that was so top heavy in terms of things that we'd score loads, but we'd concede stupid goals and drop lots of points. now that we're in this kind of, I don't know, backwards Wednesday type of thing at the moment, it's a case of we're not creating too many chances when they do come around. We're not doing the best at taking them either. So with this combination of Aston Villa kind of being a bit leaky, but Arsenal not creating too many chances, how do you kind of see the game playing out?
I think if I'm recalling back to our chat on our end for our podcast, I kind of, and I still have this feeling, I feel like it's either going to be like a 0-0 or it's going to be like a 3-1 score line or something. Like it's going to be one of those far in between. For all our luck, it's going to be 0-0. Both keepers have absolute worldies, and we're just kind of stuck here thinking like, okay, another clean sheet for Arsenal, positive. Villa need another clean sheet after leaking so many goals. So, I mean, I would take it, but what are your thoughts?
I think it's going to be I think it's going to be cagier than maybe people are kind of expecting it to be. A lot of Arsenal fans might be turning around and thinking we're going to just roll Villa over. That just doesn't happen for Arsenal, especially when kind of all of the omens are going in Arsenal's direction. It never kind of turns out that way. And I think that when you look at the Leicester game, Leicester had so many players out. All they did was sit behind them. I mean, it's an interesting question, I suppose, is you look at that Leicester game that Leicester just sat 11 men behind the ball and eventually they just countered because Arsenal didn't create enough. Do you think it's within kind of Dean Smith's prerogative to play a similar way, or do you think you're going to come out a bit more than maybe what Leicester did?
It's kind of been typical under Dean Smith, unfortunately, in the Premier League that we start out fairly slow and we kind of have to find our feet. But saying that, like, it's so unpredictable. The last two games, especially, and I feel like I banged about that kind of too much, but we started very slow. It's almost been a kind of feeling out process of, okay, I don't know if it's fear or what it is, but it's always interesting. The games against Arsenal are always so unpredictable. If you think, oh, what was it? Probably 6-7 years ago now, when I think we beat you guys 3-1, and Tony Moon, or Antonio Luna, I should say his real name, scored the third goal to beat you guys on the opening day. And I'm thinking, first of all, why is our left back so high up the pitch further than our striker? But like, it's always so unpredictable. I can think of the FA Cup game where you guys absolutely smashed us and somehow we thought we were going to win. And it's always unpredictable, especially with under Dean Smith. Like, I can think of so many games where we start off absolutely on fire, no one can touch us. And then I've seen other games where we don't even show up for the first half. And then the second half, we're reeling and thinking, okay, there's a chance. And I think if you're looking at that example, the last game against Southampton was the perfect example.
Yeah. Let's go to predictions then before we wrap things up. Chat box, if you'd like the opportunity now to throw those predictions in. I can see some of you doing it already. But Cole, what are you going to go for in tomorrow's game, rather?
I will go very neutral. I'll go 1-1. I've kind of changed my mind from earlier, but I think we could use a point. Our biggest gripe last season was that we couldn't beat a traditional top 6 side until we beat you guys. Sorry.
Welcome to the
club. This season's a bit different. Obviously, everyone looks at the Liverpool result and beating Leicester as well at the very last moment too. So I think kind of keeping on with that this season, I think it's another way for us to kind of improve upon last season. So
yeah, okay, fair enough. I mean, I'm sticking with what I went for. I mean, I'm pretty sure I went with 3-1.
I think so.
When I was on your side of things, so I'm going to stick with that. I just can't see us not conceding, and I say that as supporting the club with the best defensive league in the Premier League right now, which is weird. It still feels strange saying that as an Arsenal fan, which is great. I think it's props to Arteta for turning things around that way. But I'm going to go with 3-1. Let's see what some of the guys. Now, what usually happens is when I have a guest on, like I have one of the nicest audiences, I should say, on the whole platform in terms of Arsenal side of things. But they'd like to embarrass me, it's fair to say, when I have a guest on, someone new. Temiola's going for 12-0. Like, Real Janice is going for 7-6. I mean, these guys, they're taking the mick, frankly. Anyway, we'll get to the more serious predictions. Omar says 3-1 to the Arsenal. Nico's going for a 2-1 Arsenal. Real Janice has corrected himself from his 7-6 one and says 2-1 to Arsenal. Daniel Roberts says 1-0. Patrick Carlson's going for 5-1. Chris Belsham's going for 3-0. So it's a little bit skewed in Arsenal's
just
favour.
A little bit.
Just a little bias going on there. But no, I don't. I think it's going to be an entertaining game. Aston Villa and Arsenal, as you said, with the scorelines we've talked about previous in the games that we played, is always something where you can't really predict clearly who's going to win this game. you'd have to say that it kind of skews in Arsenal's favour, one being at home with the defensive record they've got and the recent results that have gone for both teams. But it's going to be interesting. Form goes out the window, not just in derbies, but for whoever Arsenal play against. So it's going to be an interesting one for sure. But tell people where they can find you, Cole, and yeah, just plug whatever you like, mate.
Yeah, for sure. If Arsenal fans want to catch basically Villa content, you can go on our Twitter at 7500 to Holtz. If you want to find me personal, I just kind of tweet whatever. It's at Talk Aston Villa.
There you go. So go get following Cole and 7500 to Holte. They're a fantastic crew, guys. And if you want to listen to the preview that I did with those guys, make sure you click the link in the description and you can find that there. Thank you ever so much, people, for tuning in. Make sure you drop a like on the video if you've enjoyed it and subscribe to the channel if you're new. We do shows every single day. So enough. And I'd have to say again, thank you to everyone that tweeted me all the Jobberslide links this morning, again, for the second day running. So fingers crossed we can get them over the line. I'm sure I'll be talking about it in a lot more. And yes, I can't go a show without bringing up his name in some shape or form, but I'm blaming that more on you guys. But yeah, thank you ever so much for listening, guys. We'll see you again very, very soon. And as always, up the Arsenal.